Welcome to the Business Meets Soul podcast. I'm your host, Tara Hegarty, and on this show, you can expect powerful, soul-shifting conversations to help you effortlessly expand, align your energy, and unlock your infinite potential in life and business. Because your definition of success isn't determined by an endpoint or goal. For you, success is the byproduct of being who you are, doing what you love, and living in alignment with your soul. Are you ready to anchor into deeper layers of abundance, service, and freedom together? Let's dive in. Welcome. I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Anne Taylor. I met Anne online and was immediately drawn to her magnetic energy and the work she does. And I also had the honor of meeting Anne and attending one of her moon circles. And it was so uplifting, so supportive, and oh my God, like soul nourishing. It was incredible. And since meeting her in person, I can say hand on heart, Anne is the most open, compassionate, and encouraging person I've ever met. So Anne works as a celebrant, a ritualist, and a way shower, and creates ceremonies for life's many rites of passage, from blessing ways to marriages to funerals and everything else in between. And Anne actually believes that participating in ceremony is not just about the words that are said, but the vibration that's kind of created, because the feeling and the frequency that anchors us into a moment of time is what we remember. And I so love that. And I am so honored to be speaking to you today, Anne. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so good to connect in this way.
Tell me in your own words, just a little bit about yourself and really how you got into this path of becoming a ceremony creatrix and heart healer.
Yeah, so I think it was always in me. When I was 15 years old, I used to read the Tao Te Ching and the Dalai Lama's books, and there was always this deep connection to spirituality. So from a young age, I think it was pretty unusual at the time for someone my age in those teenage years to be interested in so many different spiritual pathways. And in a sense, I was really lucky to not be raised with any religion. So I had no dogma and no, I guess, template for what spirituality could be. I got to discover it all on my own. And it just kind of was always with me. So this idea of like philosophy, spirituality, world religions, like I was fascinated with religions from around the world, not just the one that surrounded my culture. And yeah, life kind of took me to different places. I ended up going to uni and becoming a lawyer. So I worked in the corporate world as well for a really long time and felt really disenchanted with that pathway, even though I knew it was intellectually stimulating and kept me busy and kept me curious. The spiritual side of me was always there, and it was always yearning to be expressed. So with some courageous steps that I took, I sort of slowly eased myself out of being a lawyer and started my marriage celebrant business part-time, and then just very slowly stepped full-time into the space of creating ceremonies. And I think it was really just one of those questions that are posed. I must have been listening to Alan Watts talk about, I loved his lectures, like his old lectures from the 50s and 60s and early 70s. And he would say, what would you do if money were no issue? Or what would you do if, it was, you could do whatever you wanted and work was play, essentially. And I just thought, well, I would just practice my spirituality all of the time. And I love ritual and I love participating in ceremony. So that's what I would do if I could do it all day, every day, and getting paid or not. And so I thought, well, why don't I create a business around doing ceremonies for all of, as you said, all of life's rites of passage, all the way through from birth to death. Yeah.
That's incredible. to know that you always had those little nudges and you're able to really tune into those and it is a courageous step. It's such a huge step going from corporate life to spirituality, and it's almost like that step into the unknown, whereas, you know, a corporate world is stepping into the known because you can see lawyers, but your own spiritual path it's so unique and so different for each individual. And unless you have people around you that are in that space, it's really hard to take that next step. So that's so incredible. And I know that there's so much power in ceremonies, and you've kind of referred to it as this, like, almost like this lost art. And I'd love if you could share your own experience on how ceremonies actually work for you and how you make them so special, whether it is for blessing ways, funerals, or marriages. And if there's any kind of frequencies or shifts in frequencies that you see during ceremonies, whether it's yourself or other people.
Yeah, so I love the concept, and I truly believe it is the lost art. And I think our modern society, our Western modern society is really, really poor when it comes to honoring rites of passage. So, you know, because a lot of people are moving away from structured religion, people don't get much ceremony in their life at all. So I see it as a lost art, because we might go to weddings and funerals in our society. Some people still go to church, you know, but is it highly personalized? Is it, you know, reflective of our modern culture? And so I think what my mission when starting my business when starting Ceremona, was to inject ritual back into modern life. So this idea that we can have ritual and ceremony again for all of the moments in life, not just weddings and funerals. And we don't even do those very well. You know, are funerals really healing for most people? I don't know that they always are. And weddings often don't include a lot of spirituality, because people are put off sometimes by religion being in weddings. So it's almost like they don't know that you can bring the two together. You can have a civil ceremony that still feels sacred. So I think that the lost art is really kind of becoming more like our ancestors, going back to the old ways and really ritualizing almost like daily life. We can create and build rituals into daily life. We can certainly honor a lot more milestones in life than we do. And that just sounded like so much fun to me, to do more than just weddings and funerals, even though I love doing weddings and funerals. Blessing ways, as you mentioned, baby namings, rites of passage ceremonies. So especially for women, as we move through the phases of our lives, we let things, you know, motherhood or menopause or becoming a wise woman, we let those moments go past without acknowledging them. And I think we lose something as a culture and as a society by not honoring those moments appropriately. So creating ceremonies, again, it's so highly individualized. I think the idea of having a personalized ceremony created for you is that it is about you. It's not about a dogma. It's not about a set of rules or beliefs that other people have. It can be completely tailored to the moment you're going through, to the rite of passage, to the milestone. But at the same time, I guess everyone's frequency is different. So some people, my ceremonies might not suit everybody, and that's fine. And I realized that really early on, that unless our frequencies align, I might not be the right person to create a ceremony for a certain person. But if I am, that's where magic really happens. And if we have alignment and a kindred spirit, I suppose, that's where you can actually get this really personalized ceremony and personalized service. And it can be transformational, and it can be transcendental as well, which is always amazing. And that's the shift I often feel myself in ceremony with energy or through other people. I can tell when we've together, no matter how many people are there, we've kind of come to a transcendental place, or we've reached a place of total presence where everybody is present together. And there's just nothing like it. And you can feel people drop into the present moment, and you can feel all of the baggage that they might have had before they walked in just left at the door. And then we clear space for healing or enlightenment or whatever it is that happens for each individual. If they can clear the space and make a path for it, it can come through. So I think that's one of the coolest feelings I get in ceremony, is just feeling people dropping into the present moment, and myself as well. I can feel when I fully drop in, and it's just, it's magical, and it's almost difficult to describe in words.
It sounds really powerful. Is it in terms of just a sense and a knowing, or it's like this feeling like in your heart that you kind of go, right, everyone's in this space now?
For me, I think it's it's almost a physical feeling, like I can feel it in the air. I can feel the room, I guess, physically vibrate on a different level. I can feel like a clearing, like I can, around me, just that it's almost like the air feels clear all of a sudden, or people go to that place of presence, or they have those moments where they literally, their minds stop chattering and the air feels different in the room. That's the best I can.
Yeah, that's incredible. I had this visual of like the person having the ceremony, whether it's the wedding or the blessing way, and just like this kind of ring kind of coming out from them almost, and just exuding out to all the people that are around them, there to witness and celebrate and be in ceremony with them. That's incredible and so powerful. I'm curious, how do you prepare yourself for a ceremony? And it's probably a little bit different probably for each, whether it's a wedding or a funeral or a blessing way, but is there some sort of common ritual you do to get yourself into that space?
I think the biggest thing is protecting your own energy when you're holding space for so many people. And I just might comment on what you were saying about that idea of the ring expanding. It's definitely that, but it's also like every single other person is doing the same. So it becomes very much a collective experience. And it, so it's not just focused on that one person that the ceremony might be about. But what the real impactful kind of power is really when you feel it collectively, and it's like that unification of every single person in the room. And I think that's when it literally feels like time stops. And it's so cool when it happens in a wedding, because it's usually a huge group of people, and it's just like we're all floating in a timeless place. And I can always feel it when it happens. And sometimes it doesn't happen at all. It does depend. But it's a really cool collective experience. And I think that's why our ancestors would gather for huge, festivals and dancing and singing. And they would have collective transcendental experiences where they would go to other planes of existence together. It's so hard to describe, but you just know when it happens, and it's like everyone's in sync, which is so cool.
That's incredible. So incredible.
Yeah. And I think it's what a lot of people live for. It's what a lot of people are seeking as an experience. And there's this scene in one of the Matrix movies that always it's like the perfect expression of this feeling. It's called the Zion rave scene, and it's like that famous kind of scene where it's like all the humans, like the real humans, are dancing together, and they're wearing like natural fibers, and I always think like that's what it means to be human, to have a collective experience like that where everybody's elevating together. And I find that ceremony creates the same exact thing. So it's so cool. It's so hard to describe the feeling, but it's so collective. And I think that's what adds to the amplification of the power.
It's such a powerful visual, actually. Like the whole Matrix kind of gave me an understanding. You're right. And there's that collective energy. And when it comes together, it can help each other and raise that frequency to a whole new level, which, as you said, people are seeking, but once you experience it, and I wonder when those moments happen, that's what gives people that loving feeling after a ceremony or a wedding and just go, oh my gosh, that was just incredible.
Yeah.
Did you feel the love? Did you feel the energy? Did you feel, that the dynamics at that, I don't know, that blessing way was just incredible. Like, you must be getting all those types of comments that people are explaining that collective feeling in a way that resonated for them in that space.
Yeah, it's literally like, did you feel the love in the air, or like just what was in the air hanging around all of us? Yeah, it is. And that's what I feel too. And I know if I'm feeling it, then other people are as well. It is the power of the collective. It's, we're not meant to do things alone. We're like little bees in hives. There's this concept that humans have a hive mind, and that we're psychically connected to each other just in the same way that bees are. And we work together just as organically. I think it's true. And I just think we're disconnected from that in modern culture. And ceremony is one of the ways that we reconnect. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. With each other and with spirit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how I prepare for ceremonies.
Yeah.
I started to say before, one of the biggest things is protecting my own energy. So it gets easier over time. I used to have to do a lot more work to sort of protect my own energy in preparation and during a ceremony.
Yeah.
But now it's really just a matter of, like, I use talismans and tools. So I have a Native American ancestry, and I have a medicine bag that I got as a child. And if I wear my medicine bag, I know I'm protected. I put a lot of work into the things that are contained in that bag and what protection tools. It's only tiny, but there's a lot of protection in that little tiny space. In saying that, I don't rely exclusively on material tools. I don't think that that's necessary or always healthy even.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of psychic and energetic protection that I do. And one of the great ways that I've learned to do self-protection is not to put up a shield or a wall or a barrier of any type, but it's this idea of like pulling in your own energy and almost being this like orb that buffers you from other people's stuff that you don't need to take on. And it can be totally innocent, and it doesn't have to be negative stuff, but there's a sense of like using your own strength to protect yourself rather than needing a shield, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It helps embody your energy and be able to stay strong and not absorb anything else, and be able to be the best at what you're doing in that ceremony space. And that's incredible.
Yeah. There's
so
also sort of a goal of being a clear channel. And I guess that's slightly different than protection. So protection is like one thing. Often before a ceremony, I will say my own little prayer or my own little incantation, I suppose, just asking for guidance and asking that everybody receives what they're meant to receive from this ceremony. And also like including sometimes that self-protection. But more than that, I think it's just allowing yourself to be a clear channel. So in my ceremonies, I'm just opening my channel up. And I think my unique, I suppose, psychic gift is to channel language. So with ceremony, language is so important. And finding the exact right word to communicate the thought or the feeling. And I don't know if there's a word for that, but I've called it clairlingual, this idea of being clairlingual.
I love it.
Where language just channels through, and it's not necessarily mine, but I guess my brain is putting the word to the concept.
Yes. Yeah. And is it almost like words that are connecting to that person specifically or that couple, or that for that ceremony, that particular ceremony?
Yeah, definitely. It's connected to the moment in time, I suppose, or it's connected to what we're doing. But the clarity and like the openness of being able to receive whatever is coming through is the most important thing. And I know I always just trust that the right thing will come through. So it's going to be appropriate for what we're doing. Yeah. And I think it's just, it's a really interesting thing to be that open channel and to know when you're really clear, and to know, again, I think the transcendental moment that you feel and that you realize is happening is connected to that, because you're kind of tapped in directly to source.
Yes.
And you're allowing source to speak through you, and everybody's going to get exactly what they need because it's source speaking. And the moment is going to be magical because everyone's getting tapped in and connected to source.
Yeah, that's incredible. And has that progressed over the years for you, that that sense that keeps coming through? Has it been getting louder as the more you kind of open up and go through your own personal journey?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and it comes with doing lots of ceremony as well. It comes with feeling open and confident and okay with being that open channel in front of people that you don't know.
Yeah, that's a very vulnerable position, isn't it?
It is. And if you're thinking too much about what these people will think of you, or will you be judged, or will you be sort of categorized somehow, or labeled in some way, it cuts off the connection. So it really is moving beyond that point where you're worried about what anyone's thinking, and you do just open up and just know that, knowing and trusting that whatever comes through will be available and accessible to the people who need to hear it.
Yeah.
And some people won't understand it, but they will still connect with it in a way that it's just a feeling, or they'll feel that, the air in the room, and they'll deeply, deeply connect with it, even if the words don't make sense to them, or even if it's a concept they've never heard of before. I've seen that happen many, many times. People who maybe you wouldn't expect to connect in or to appreciate it so much. Yeah.
And through that, were there any sort of gurus or mentors or teachers that you reached out to really help develop that? Or is that just something that kind of naturally came over the years for you?
I think it's something that naturally came as I allowed myself to be that channel, and had faith, I guess, in myself to, I mean, so many things. Yeah, it's about no fear, and also about faith and confidence in the connection, I suppose. And no one that taught me specifically or directly, but I think over the years I've connected with or listened to or read books by people who have that same ability. And I think that's what really showed me that was possible, and showed me, I suppose, how magical it could be, or how impactful being clairlingual could be. Because I used to listen to a lot of lectures by Ram Dass and Alan Watts, who I mentioned earlier, also Terence McKenna, all of these incredible, a lot of them from the same sort of era, like 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe, philosophers from a different time, I suppose. All three of those men have passed away. I also love Joseph Campbell, who was an expert on mythology. He coined the phrase "follow your bliss," and that was one of the big phrases that helped me move into this space, as a full-time endeavor, I suppose. Because I thought, well, what would I be doing if I was following my bliss? And Joseph Campbell wrote a lot of books about archetypes and mythology and the commonality between all cultures and all peoples. So this idea that there's another level or plane of existence that we all can access that has the same exact archetypes. It's almost like being a minimalist and simplifying your life. If we simplify everyone's lives, or we simplify our understanding of culture, we get to this other plane of existence where there's just common themes and we all can relate to them. And I think that's those men, really, they're all men, which I think is interesting. I've kind of delved more into amazing female teachers more recently, but this was years ago, sort of being inspired by and listening to these modern day philosophers talk about anything and everything, but using language in such a fast-paced, articulate, intelligent, and mind-blowing way to express deep concepts about spirituality. And for me, that was just cut through. They were able to cut through and like explain it to me. And I'm sure, there's other ways of getting that cut through for other people, but those were some of my really big influences. More recently, I have been connecting a lot more with women in the wisdom space and healing space as well. And I think it just was an evolution for me personally to go from having a very masculine, logical, philosophic set of people who inspired me. And then somehow it prepared me and it got me ready to receive all the feminine wisdom that I've received more recently. Jane Hardwick Collins is one of my favorite women, Australian women, working in the rites of passage space and helping women reclaim parts of themselves, the phases of our lives, reconnecting with nature. She's been so inspiring to sort of help me learn how to reconnect with the wheel of the year and connect in with the seasons. I think, when you've grown up in the Northern Hemisphere and you move to the Southern Hemisphere, which many Australian people's ancestors did, and when you don't let go of the seasonal holidays and seasonal celebrations and then embrace what's actually happening here, there's a bit of a disjoint to me, and it's taken me years to figure out how to feel comfortable with that disjoint. And really what it means is to focus on the here and the now and the ecology that I'm surrounded by. So Jane is such an inspiration when it comes to connecting the seasons around us, the seasons of our lives and the rhythms of our cycles, and demystifying and also taking away shame when it comes to so many powerful things that our divine feminine energy embodies. There's a sense that where there's power, there's going to be suppression, and really, really acknowledging the power of our cycles, the power of our life cycles, even, the power that's in menopause, the power of motherhood. She's just incredible at highlighting all of that for women.
So many profound teachers out there that you're right, that is so easily accessible now. I am so curious because I want to know, we're talking about rites of passage and Jane Hardwick Collins, and I just want to know, how has hosting ceremonies for all different life's rites of passage helped you on your own personal journey? And do you always view it as like a therapeutic tool or, some sort of healing pathway almost? Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I would say that it's had that effect. I don't know if I set out with that in mind.
Intention,
in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I guess the main thing for me personally, what I experienced through facilitating and hosting ceremonies, but also just through doing this work in general, is that I'm living in my aligned truth. Yes. So for me, it's just living in total alignment. And so the healing that comes from that is profound, because I'm actually acknowledging, like I said before, this idea of what would I be doing if I didn't have to worry about money? What would I be doing if I was just playing every day and not working? And because I get to do that, and because I've made a life and a space and carved out an opportunity to do that, I feel so aligned in every single thing I do. And it also cultivates more and more and more alignment. So there's such I suppose this is definitely a way of healing, and a tool that you can use when you're healing is when you know what it feels like to be out of alignment, and when you move more into alignment, really tiny, subtle energetics will show you if something doesn't feel aligned. So something that I wouldn't have even noticed years ago, I notice so clearly now and so instantly. And it's just easier to stay in alignment, and it's easier to notice those things when they pop up and just, move away from that, or, protect your energy from this. So in a really broad sense, the work is very healing because it naturally, just that being in alignment and being myself as well. I think that's one of the biggest things is I finally have let myself be who I truly am, whoever I'm in front of, or, sort of publicly, I guess, in the world, being true to yourself just is healing. Yeah. There's nothing more pure, I think, than that. And that feeling of living in alignment, but also the people I get to interact with, like I receive just as much as I give, especially in circles or women's circles. So there's so much wisdom because it's always interactive and it's always a reciprocal experience. So I have received so much wisdom. I've received so much, so many examples of powerful people, mostly women. And it's so enriching. It's so incredibly enriching, life enriching to be with people in these moments because of what they're willing to give and share. And I guess as a tool too, it does, doing big rituals helps remind me about my daily rituals. So it's just a bigger reflection of things. In most self-care is a ritual. So it reminds me to do those daily rituals, and it reminds me of how centered and safe I feel when I'm creating ritual. And that I have, sometimes it's hard to remember, but I have to keep reminding myself that I'm worthy of receiving all of that as well, just for myself. Yeah. As much as I love giving it to other people.
I'm curious, what daily rituals do you are like non-negotiables that you always do every day? What are some little?
So my biggest, it probably changes over time, but the biggest one at the moment is I'm doing daily practice with the Abraham Hicks workbook. So it's like I wouldn't just call it a manifesting practice, but it is a constant daily reminder and a reflection on where I intend, like who I intend to be, what I intend to be doing, what I intend to have. And I also have a book of, I think it's called the Book of Positive Aspects, that came through the work, the daily work that I'm doing. And it is just all about pivoting anything that you might see as negative, or highlighting the things that are already positive in your life. So my daily Abraham Hicks, I think it's called, it's a 365-day workbook that was published, and it literally is like homework every day. And I get up and I try to do it when I'm still in a theta brainwave state. So I do it before I turn my phone on airplane mode every night. And before I turn my phone back on, I do this journal. It's basically journaling. And try to really take advantage of the theta brainwaves, like the place I am when I first wake up. That's a non-negotiable. It happens first thing every morning. And if for some reason I can't do it, I feel off all day. Not having done that practice. And depending on the time of year, sometimes making tea is a ritual, just like making, brewing tea and pouring it into a real cup, and just that whole entire process. It's meditative to me, that tea ceremony. And there's a few others that are probably more seasonal things that come and go. But the Abraham Hicks work is daily at the moment. And I've seen my life change since starting that. I've seen my manifestations, like some of the things that I put early in the book. Because I've been doing it for like about 10 months now, going back and looking at what I wrote, and now it's happened, or I've completely created it. So just being reminded. Being reminded that we're conscious creators every single day.
So cool.
And and intentionally creating.
Yes.
So yeah, that's essentially what it is. And it just throughout the day too, you remember, okay, I'm creating this, I'm setting intentions for this part of my day. I get to choose what thoughts I have. I get to choose what's happening, what I'm creating.
And it sets the tone up, doesn't it? Like, I'm a huge advocate for morning rituals, as you know, but setting that day, setting that intention, being really mindful and being very intentional about how your day is not only going to unfold, but what your future intentions are going to be too, and what the steps are. And okay, I need to be in this space. And I think once you're in that space, you receive so much into your world. You become a lot more aware, and you become a lot more centered within your heart space as well too, don't you? So that's incredible. Thank you. That's I'm really intrigued about hearing other people's daily rituals and what they're up to and everything. So I'd love just to wrap up this session and just say, how can we find you? Like, what's the best way for all the listeners to reach you, Anne?
Yeah, so the best way is probably through my Instagram. So Ceremona Rituals, and Ceremona is Ceremona. I named it after my grandmother, whose nickname was Mona, sort of combining her name with the word ceremony, or my website. So ceremona.com.au, and there's tabs on the front page for rituals, weddings, and funerals. The contact page on there. And next year, I'm going to be, hopefully next year, creating some coursework, some online coursework that teaches other people how to create ceremonies, and especially blessing ways, which a lot of people want to do for their friends. So there's some new kind of content on the horizon to share more of my work, I suppose, more broadly. I think that's one of the limitations of doing ceremonies is it's an in-person service. And I get asked a lot about how to, just teaching people, I guess, how to create certain ceremonies. So I really want to share that more broadly next year.
It's so incredible, because being part of your circle and the energy that you share in circle, and I'm sure in your ceremonies as well, it's just so profound, and you've got this beautiful energy that allows people to really embrace that vulnerability and to be able to open up. So I'm 100% sure that those teachings are just going to be so incredible in their own way. So can't wait for that to come through. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Anne. It was an absolute delight, and so honored to be able to chat to you. I wish you all the very best, and I'll put your details in the show notes as well. So thank you, Anne.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much. It was so good to connect in this way.
You too. See you. Bye. All right, friends, that concludes today's conversation. If it lifted your spirit or touched your soul, it would mean the absolute world to me if you could leave a review and subscribe to this podcast so that more souls can be impacted by these life-changing conversations. And if you're not ready for this episode to end, head over to tarahegarty.com to get the show notes for today's episode. I love you so much, and thank you for being here. I'll see you next week for another episode of Business Meets Soul.